Aloha, everyone. Thank you for the spontaneity. We had a little internet problem, but I think we solved it. I'm so glad you're all here on the live and restreaming. And I just want to welcome all of you stewards of the earth, humanitarians, lover of life, passionate people, do-gooders who show up each and every time to a dose of positivity. And with no exception, we have the most incredible guest today, Daniel Arman. I'll be introducing him in just a moment, but if you're in the right place, this is a place where each week I have the great honor and privilege to interview change makers, thought leaders, social environmental innovators, and health practitioners, all who put social and environmental responsibility and nature at the forefront of their endeavors. That's a big mouthful, but basically, you're in the right place because you are relating to one of those aspects, and you are part of the change the world needs to be seeing right now. Thank you, Gandhi. The topic for this show is spiritual prosperity, bringing us back to Gandhi. And before we get started, as people keep entering the room, I'm going to just read a little something to you guys and from my book that's going to tie into this conversation. And in the meantime, Meredith's going to put Daniel's information in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and pull that up, if you haven't already, to see what an incredible guy that he is and what he's going to be bringing to the table. And a reminder, this is a live broadcast. You're welcome to put questions or feedback or response in the chat, and also raise your hand if you want to come off mute, and we'll love to bring you live on the show. Okay, so I'm going to be reading a little section out of Living Like the Future Matters, one of my books, The Evolution of a Soil to Soul Entrepreneur. So we're talking about spirituality and abundance today. This is a good section from the book. It's just a couple of paragraphs. This is in the cycle called Blooming. Before I got into business, I thought money was the root of all evil. My new mindset was to not let money define who I was, to not let my net worth outweigh my self-worth. I constantly reminded myself that money is merely a social cultural construct. It was the intention I gave to the money's purpose that mattered. I was in control of my relationship with prosperity and what it meant to my identity. And this is after I had started my restaurant. And Brian, who's in the house, it was one of the people who helped me with a lot of these business struggles. Thank you for being here, Brian. When I started to make more money than I ever imagined, I realized it had the power to both empower and create, or to disempower and destroy. A make money mindset was more effective when I was grateful and shared the wealth. Making more money meant business was good. I provided a service that people appreciated, and I created opportunities for people to work in an environment that fostered good intentions. It felt good also to donate money to causes that I believed in and lend money to others. To build true wealth meant to put my money into helping others and the earth. All these reasons made making money meaningful. My power lay in not letting money rob my soul and in cultivating good intentions. No matter how much money I made, I continued to shop, and still do, at thrift stores. The rest of the story is really good, but we have a really packed good hour here with Daniel. Daniel, I know you're going to have some good feedback on that with your conversation we're going to have. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. Daniel is an inspirational author. He's a speaker, and he is also the CEO of The Art of Vibrant Living, which is an international entertainment, education, and empowerment company. Daniel helps spiritual people rise their vibration and empower action in the realm of mindset, business, finance, health, emotions, and practices so that they can finally get their physical, earthly lives, I love this, to match up to their values. So they can finally get their physical, earthly lives to match up to their values, vision, and potential. I just have to read that again. I just love it. He's also recognized as a spiritual leader, business and human potential, and he supports the life transformation and the improvement of tens of thousands of students and clients. He founded and created an internationally acclaimed a Radiant Alive Center in Bali. He did this for years, and living the vibration of vibrancy, which is a 7-week transformation program he created. Daniel has a best-selling book. It's called The Art of Spiritual Leadership, which you can see all this on his website, which is in the link. It is entitled The Art of Leadership, of Spiritual Leadership, 40 Laws to Transform Your Life and the World. Wow. So that's pretty exciting stuff right here. And he is always entertaining, and that no further ado, we are going to have this incredible man come on and share his wisdom, which he has shared with many passionate executives. He's worked with Hollywood actors, entrepreneurs, therapists, artists, and just everyday people like me. In addition to his group programs and positive coaching, Daniel teaches at the Omega and Esalen Institutes. So before any further ado, Daniel, I just want to welcome you now that you're moved to Maui. I can wave to you. I see the island of Maui right here. And that is where he is living right now with his teenage daughter and his adorable little poodle named Keiki. And Daniel, I'm delighted to have you here. So please tell us, bang, like, wow, that is a lot of vibrancy right there. So give us a little backstory to, like, before Bali, where was your spiritual mindset and what were you doing to help you transform to making this journey to Bali and starting this retreat, writing this book, and doing all of the great coaching you've done in the world? Give us a little back end of who you are and where you're headed.
Well, thank you, Donna. It's such a pleasure and honor to get to hang out with you here like this and connect with your people and get a chance to talk about fun, important stuff. And and I'm happy to respond and give a little quick bit of the backstory. And the big thing that we'll get into today is this concept of spiritual prosperity and financial abundance is one of the big thorns in the side of spiritual folks. And I know it's silly to say spiritual people because everybody's spiritual. If you're alive and you're breathing, you're spiritual. Still, for a lot of us who lean toward the woo-woo, there's often like a whoa, I'm broke. And so that's part of my mission, is to really help the woo-woo people who have these great values, vision, and potential to thrive in the world and be able to do a lot of good. And for me, I started out with the standard American diet, SAD, SAD. And I mean sad diet as in what I ate. And I was a fat, shy, depressed kid. But also sad standard American diet in terms of my beliefs and mindset and what I saw around me. And, lower middle class kid from Maine, about as far as you can get in the US from Hawaii. I tried to survive childhood, but I always knew there was something more. And it wasn't until my mid-20s when I had no interest in spirituality. I had no idea about consciousness, meditation, yoga, Kundalini, any of that stuff. I was really opposed to religion. At best, I was agnostic, just kind of hedging my bets. And nonetheless, I got like a whack upside the head from God, not a word I could have used then. And she grabbed me by the hair. It was on my head rather than my chin at that point. Grabbed me by the hair, lifted me up and said, "Look, dude, there's more to the world than you've been seeing." And it was wonderful and amazing and exalted. And I had the sense of bliss and human potential. And it was also horrible because it just kind of wiped away and destroyed my previous life, my worldview. And it really threw me for a big loop. And when I came out of the following depression, like, who am I? What do I do? How do I live this that I've tasted?
Mm.
Then it became clear the only thing to do was figure out how this human experience, this spiritual being in a human experience, how that works. So I got obsessed with personal and spiritual development, and I just started going from ashram to therapy to training to certification course to whatever type of thing I sensed would help me to awaken more, or just be in less pain or less messed up and understand the human world. And so for about 13 years, that's all I did, was travel around the world, obsessed, ruthlessly devoted to personal and spiritual development. And then, I don't know, it was about 20 years ago, I got another whack on the head from the divine that said, now it's time for something different. And that's what led me to moving to Bali and to building a center and trainings. And, and the book became a natural progression out of that. Just like, how can I tell the stories of transformation that will help more people? So,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that back end. I think it's so important. And I know a lot of people who are listening to this, you could call it a spiritual awakening, a whack on the head, a message from the divine. Each of you, I challenge everybody who's listening to this right now. What is it that, whatever you want to call it? And one of the things that I really want to acknowledge and appreciate is you said at one point that you were talking about God and she picked you up by your head, and that there is no masculine or feminine. It is really just this, whatever that divine is for you. And to hear that coming from a man, I just want to let you know, and for all the other women who are listening to this, to hear a man identify like that, kind of bringing the goddess into the spiritual awakening, is very well respected, appreciated, coming from someone who's had so many years of digging deeper into the spiritual awakening. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you've been so successful doing this, and I do want to get into talking about your center, because I know there's several people on this call who I personally know who have thought about opening a center or doing a retreat. So I do want you to talk about the excitement, the challenges, and the struggles of that. But what do you, other than being picked up by the hair by the divine, and shuffling around for 20 years from ashram to different spiritual awakening experiences, what would be, you would say, the most potent thing that attributes to your success for like getting you to where you are today?
well, it's funny. The first thing that comes to me when you say that is helpful ignorance, right? There's a beautiful thing when we don't know what we can't do, right? Which, if we listen to a lot of the well-meaning people in life who want to protect us, oftentimes what they say is, you can't do that, or don't set your sights too high.
Mm.
Somehow for me, when I came, survived childhood, I just still had the sense that I know there is more. And having tasted that, it always stayed in me that there's more, whether it's more to experience, to contribute. There's always more. And so the question for me never was, well, can I? It's, well, how? What's the way to wake up further? What's the way to be more of a contribution in the world? And just somehow ignoring the naysayers, including the naysayer in myself, that got scared or ran from old programs. So there's just something so powerful about the belief that anything is possible.
Absolutely. You know, last week, and I don't know, Meredith, you can find this, but putting the blog up, it was all about, just this whole idea of self-worth and self-confidence. like we would like to think that we don't have it because someone's robbed us or taken away or we've been put under their thumb, when in actuality, really, when it comes down to it, people who will tell you this have come from the most oppressed places, like even Oprah Winfrey or Michael Jordan, wherever they've come from, they didn't listen to the people who said you couldn't. Because a lot of people will, like, I love that you brought that up, the namesayers, it's that digging deeper, that really coming in to, like, what is the divine, or why am I here? And that, I think, is the most important thing that attributed to my success, is I never ever stop. Not one day goes by that I don't ask that deeper question to myself: what am I here to do? Not what someone else thinks I should be doing, or puts their values and judgments. Our society is so full of that. And I love that your work that you do is you really help people explore that. So let's talk about how you do that and what a typical day is for you, so that you have that groundedness, that sense of self, that integrity, that honesty, the honor that you have, and the privilege that you've helped so many people. Tell us how you take care of yourself in a typical day, and then how that pours over into those you work with.
Cool. Thank you. Well, one of the biggest problems I see with my clients and students, and with, because I work a lot with spiritual entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, and one of the biggest issues they face is imposter syndrome, right? And those of us who say, I know I've got something to contribute to the world, I got something to share, to teach. It's gonna happen sooner or later, and for most of us, repeatedly, that imposter voice comes up and says, are you kidding? Who would listen to you? Like, you've got it all worked out. Who are you to say, that kind of, I know none of you probably here have ever had that voice, but me and everybody else I know has. So one of the ways to work with that's really powerful, and the way I work with it myself, is I start every day with what on some level you could call spiritual practice, though I shudder to use those words, because it's so kind of cliche. Woo woo. Yeah. Well, and because it means something different to so many different people. It's like if you say love, well, what love means to one person is different from another. And if you say meditation, well, that's got all these different connotations. So when I say spiritual practice, what I mean in simplest terms is that I start every day with focusing inward, with, taking a break from all the external stuff in the world, even my own identity, to the best I can. And I consciously go to nothing. I go to the beyond the physical world, or the 5D, or the metaphysical, in order to create, right? To loosen the boundaries of my own limitations and my own blockages, and say, okay, in this expanded world where anything is possible, who do I want to be? What do I want to create? What do I want to experience? And it's not easy, right? Because that human animal part of all of us, that survival oriented part, is ready to just jump in and say, well, what about this thing in the past, and this thing tomorrow, and how am I going to do this? And what about this? And you're going to do this. And you got a lot of emails, and what's your problem? So it's like working with a wild animal, or even a domestic animal, like my wonder poodle Kiki. When I first got her, I would say, sit over there, and she would sit for about 1 millisecond, and then she could, oh, no, come back here. So it's the same thing for me. Like, I sit down on the meditation cushion, and my mind wants to get up and go and do other things, and I say, no, this is time to be, as you said, as Gandhi said, be the change that I want to be in the world. This is time to pay attention to what really matters, what I'm creating in the world. And part of why that's so important is, well, one, that's how we create, but two, that gives me the counterbalance to that imposter syndrome, right? And I'm never claiming to be done, baked, enlightened. What I'm claiming to be is I'm doing the best I can every day to be my truest, most divine self, to be love, to be kindness, to be integrity, right? And I'm working toward that every day. And that's what gives me a sense of authority and a counterbalance to that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a fire hose. That makes sense?
No, yeah, but basically, in summary, it takes taking time for yourself and to do that inner work, and getting in touch with. I want to say, a lot of people will say your inner child, but getting in touch with your inner adulthood. Like we're grown-ups now, and we don't need to have those old scripts anymore. That imposter syndrome, the negative feedback loops that so many people hold on to for literally their entire freaking lives. And there isn't time, like when I work with clients and people, like I say, if I have to work with you for more than 3 months, we're going to have a problem here unless we're at the next level of something really great. We don't go backwards. We stop the craziness, right? It's like we don't have time. And sure, it's certain we don't have time. Yeah, if you want to live a life, and I say of crime, because you're robbing yourself of the pure joy and the bliss that you can have by experiencing an incredible life. Because if you're in a state of bliss, you're in the state of spiritual awakening, like a pebble in a still pond. You're, like you said, your good intentions, that's what you're doing. You're spreading that love, that consciousness with. And I always say, it's okay to be woo, as long as I'm not too woo woo. I mean, there's some people who follow the Bible. That's fine. Simple. The Taliban, not the Taliban, the Taliban. Um, whatever it is, like people will go to someone else's book, which is not a bad thing to use as a guide. But really, what I hear you saying in the summary of all that and sitting on your meditation cushion is tuning into your book. What is it that God or that chosen that has brought you here? So I really appreciate this coming to, again, like from a male person sharing their dogma, right? What you're bringing to the world. So that brings me to, like, I'd like to touch down, like, how and what point in your life when you settled in Bali and you said, I'm going to open up this retreat center. Because like I said, I know a lot of people listening to this, they want to do a retreat or they want to start a retreat. Like, what came to you, the confidence to do something so amazing as that you did, and that you helped so many people, and you did it for such a long time?
Thank you. Yeah, well, it started with an impulse to say, because I'd had so many great experiences in my life of being either a participant in a retreat or some kind of training, or being a leader of them or a co-facilitator of them. When I found myself planted in Bali, then it became a natural question, like, well, what if we get a group of people together? What if we come together, like the word satsang, or when Jesus says, when two or more gather in my name? What if we get a group of people together and really devote ourselves to awakening? How could we help people experience the truth of who they are in 4 days or 28 days? And we had yoga teacher training and raw chef training and leadership training. And really it was just that impulse that said, well, that would be cool, right? Yeah, let's do it. And from that, yes, it's like so many things, man. If I knew at that point what would have been involved and how much work it would have taken, no way, I would never have done it, right? It's like getting a puppy, like, they're so cute. I love puppies. Wonderful. Let's get a puppy. And then 3 days later, it's 4 a.m. and you're standing in the front yard in your underwear and you're like, would you just pee already, please? But it's that beautiful thing where we get a little blanket of ignorance, a blanket comes over us, and what we see, rather than all the problems in the work, we see this beautiful possibility, the inspiration. right? And I love that word inspiration. It just, it means to breathe in, it means the bringing in of spirit. And when we can say yes to that, amazing things happen.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, inspiration is a very powerful thing. So when you got into the retreat though, things evened out, and when you started doing your on a regular basis, like I know with our restaurant, as after a while, it falls into place, into a routine, and then it just becomes a way of life and a service. So did you get to that point? I mean, didn't you do that? How many years did you do this?
Well, I think, really start to finish, it was probably about 12 years of leading events and built a physical center. And and yes and no, it did get to be like, well, this is normal life. Like, and I remember my daughter, when she was, almost a year old, she literally took her first steps at one of our transformational events, and she grew up in that world. And so that was like her normal life. Um, and at the same time, like, I don't know, curse and a blessing for me. I'm always needing to innovate, grow, expand. So as much as the trainings were part of life, those events, it was also like, how can we do it better? How can we serve more? How can we grow? How can we expand? So it was a constant process of growing and expanding too.
Well, then that leads me to my next question, and what you kind of sort of touched upon and answered, but a hard answer and like a simple question, 3 words, what motivates you? And how can that 3-word question inspire others to motivate them?
Well, I think in a single word, it's evolution. And to me, the most alive, the most juicy, the most exciting feeling in life is when we grow beyond our previous limitations, when we grow beyond our previous definition of ourself. That's, because that's what we're here to do, right? The thing that we hear so many times, well, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Well, yeah. And the reason for that, the whole reason is to grow and expand, to become more in consciousness. So everything that we do, from the challenges to the goals to the experiences, is all about just expanding our potential. And that's fun. I mean, not always. Sometimes it's hard and challenging, but at the same time, I've had enough dark nights of the souls and enough breakthroughs that it's always like, that's just so exciting. And to be able to help other people with that and experience more in their lives, that's a sublime gift.
Yeah, that's what motivates you. And I think it motivates most people when they say just how you ended that, when you can help others. I mean, I think that's really the calling of any really conscious spiritual leader or human who doesn't even know that they're a spiritual leader. By helping others is a huge thing. And you'll notice the chapter, my book is called The Evolution of a Soul to Soul Entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And living like the future matters. So I loved it when you summed what motivated you and what could motivate others is one single word, evolution. And I really, every time I see the word, well, or people say, even the Beatles, you say you want a revolution. When I sing that, I sing at the top of my lungs, and I say you want an evolution. So anytime anybody sees the word revolution, I think transcending, if we're really going to do what we're all trying to do in this spiritual reclaiming of humanity right now, is we are looking for an evolution, allowing ourselves to let go, to transcend, to experience a better, a higher quality of life with a purpose to help others, which is what you were saying that motivated you, right? So like for me, what motivated me to write my books, now I want to ask you, like, what motivated you to write a book and give it such a title as The Art of Spiritual Leadership? I mean, that's a big thing you're offering, right? And not only that, you have a tagline, 40 laws to transform your life in as your tagline, right? And the world. So I'd like to hear about like what motivated you to even think about writing such a book, and how did you come up with these 40 laws to transform your life and the world?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, firstly, it's like I wanted to share with more people, and I was running these events in Bali, and it cost people a lot of money, and they had to take a bunch of time off of their life and fly around the world to be there for these live events, and that's great. And if I can put some of the transformational stories, give some of the inspiration and the principles into a format that somebody can pick up on an ebook or a hard copy, and for 10 or 20 or dollars or something, get access. It's not the same, of course, but get something that's of value. Well, that's awesome. I'm all for that. And it was a great challenge. And honestly, I think I wrote probably at least 3 different versions over several years before it's like I knew I had these stories that I wanted to share, but how could I put them in such a way that the truth behind them, or the principles, were really not just entertaining, but actually helpful. And so I pushed myself to say, what are these stories? And, whether it's a story of transformation of Oprah Winfrey, or the story of transformation of the Buddha himself, or my own stories, well, how did that happen? What's the principle there? And we as humans, we learn really well from story. We get into kind of a trance and we overlay our experience onto the story. Yet at the same time, if we can bring the principle forward, that just makes it's like Aesop's fables, right? Here's the story and here's the lesson. That format works for us as humans. And last thing I'll say about that for now is the subtitle, 40 Laws to Transform Your Life and the World. What that points to is, going back to Gandhi's statement again, to be the change you want to see in the world. All leadership starts within, right? And the impact, and just like, with children, they listen much less to what we say and pay attention a lot more to what we do. Or as the way Emerson put it, I love, which is, nobody hears a word you say. No, how does he say it? Who you are speaks so loudly, nobody hears a word you say, right? It's who we are. It's the way we behave. It's our being that transmits the most.
Yeah. Yeah, Angela, I always having a brain fart on her name, but she says something similar to that. People don't remember what you say, they remember how they make you feel. If somebody wants to come off mute, Angela, you know guys who I'm talking about. She's amazing. We'll put that in the chat. Wow, because you just popped a lot of good names there. I love Emerson. I love these transcendentalists who were evolutionists, and really, really trying to bring that back. And I talk about that in my book. I write about these great shoulders that we stand upon, moving forward. I really, really appreciate. I haven't read your book yet, but it sounds awesome, and resonates with a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about spiritual prosperity, and that which is the title of this talk. So what I'd love for you to do, of maybe skirting around the book too, but when you say spiritual prosperity, what does that mean to you, and what should that mean to anybody who is listening to this? Because one thing I wrote about in my most recent blog, and that I've been talking about for a long time, is how do we redefine success and wealth? And when I think of spiritual prosperity, I think of that as the top of the list. If you have pure spiritual prosperity, man, wow, you're at the top of the pyramid of wealth. So let's just talk about that term and how you use that term throughout your book, throughout your coaching, and to our audience right now.
Yeah, sure. It's a big, beautiful, important conversation. And I'll tell you how I got to this. I told you before, lower middle class kid from Maine. Our family never had enough. Scarcity was the law of the land. There was never enough. Money was an issue. It was a source of conflict between my parents. So I was raised and steeped in that mindset, which is the mindset of most people in the world. And, shortly after my, little spiritual awakening experience in my mid-20s, I came across a modality called transformational breath. And I got obsessed with it, and I went and did a training in it. And one of the requirements was that we were to do a 40-day spiritual prosperity program as written out by a guy named John Randolph Price in his little book called The Abundance Book. And Donna, when I saw this requirement on our syllabus, weirdest thing ever, I had this feeling in me like, no, I will not do that. Like, for, just like this visceral thing. And I remember we started it as a group. There was like 40 of us in this training. We started it all together one day. We did this declaration of how we're investing ourselves into the concept of spiritual prosperity. And I said the words out loud, and the next day I quit. I'm not doing it. And the deal is you do it 40 days in a row. Well, eventually I realized, well, if I'm going to graduate from this program, I actually got to do this part of it too. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And it was life-changing for me. I had no.
Oh, share, like, what is this breath? Like, can you show us? Like, can you share that with us?
Oh, the actual breath technique.
Yeah.
Well, you could call it therapeutic breathing. I think of it sometimes as the super highway to consciousness, evolution, transformation, as opposed to like, or in relationship to say yoga, which to me is the slow, steady highway to awakening. And in this kind of breathing, we do like an hour typically of a type of breath where it's strong and deep and continuous, and always has really powerful, transformational, insightful, life transformative experiences come out of it. And I still work with it to this day.
Yeah. So it's a different form of pranayama then. It's different than yogic breathing.
It's quite different than what you would see in yoga, for sure.
Yeah. Like I know there's some of these breathing techniques, and everybody who's listening to this, full disclosure, warnings, some of these breath things you got to be very careful with, because you can hyperventilate and you can do damage to yourself with it, especially if you're doing some kind of medicinal microdosing or whatever. You have to be very careful with the breath. So you want to make sure you're doing that with somebody who really understands this kind of powerful breath work, because I have had good experiences, and I've had people have some interesting experiences. So that might be something you might want to hit Daniel up after this call if you want to know more about that breathing. But I would like you to say the title of that book again, so we can put it in the chat. And if people are interested in reading that, because it sounded like it was a real pinnacle time in your life, in part of your transformation. And I want to make everybody aware too, who's listening to that. I mean, here's Daniel, who's got like all these years behind him, and just like all of us do it, sometimes we regress into that childhood thing or that poodle thing. Yeah, I'll sit for a second, and then like basically whatever. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to. No, you can't. And it's sort of like letting go of these. Like, who's telling you? Right? Or what is stopping you from like at least trying something new and different, especially post-COVID, actually next series of COVID, where we had all these constrictions and all of these things, like, you know what I'm talking about. So like allowing us to be open. You're here on this call, you're listening to this replay, whoever you are, this might be just your time, right? To just, uncross your arms and your legs and your mind and expand what is you, that deeper thing that we started this conversation talking about. And this is that spiritual prosperity. That's where we're getting to, is allowing our spirits to be our spirits And if you have good intentions and love, it's time to rise like a phoenix, because God knows the world needs every one of us to show our best sides right now. So when I say that, getting into that, a question for you, like right now, I was like, and I want everybody to hear this question, and that, Daniel, then I love you to just like really no bones, no holding back. Like what is your relationship with spirituality now? I mean, how old are you? How, are you in your 40s? Because I was doing the math.
My body at this point is 53 years old.
Whoa.
And yep. And my relationship with spirituality is, it's the most important, essential in life. It's the it's the main game that we are playing. It's what I'm most devoted to, is continually expanding and growing into the best truest version of myself, which often means letting go of who I'm not,
Yeah.
and being more of a light and of greater service in the world.
Yes. Uh, good. I love that. So now you've taken that, and because you're kind of like this business guru now, and helping these woo-woo spiritual people find prosperity, not just in spirituality, but also in finding financial abundance. Can you go into a little bit about the relationship between spirituality and business, and leave us with some really concrete tips today, even people who are retired? Um, what are things that we can do? Because it's your business, what you do with your life, everybody. Business is anytime there's an exchange. So I don't care if you're retired looking for a job or in your middle of a career. Daniel, talk about the relationship between spirituality and business, please.
Yeah, with pleasure. It's a juicy topic, and I'll just bring it back and wrap up the last part I was saying about that original experience. The book that you asked for the title of is called The Abundance Book by
Mhm.
John Randolph Price. And what was so powerful for me about that experience is it rewired me from what I had always believed, which is there's not enough, right? It's life is about scarcity, to the deeper spiritual understanding that all of our good and all of our goods comes from an infinite source that is spirit. And there is always enough. There's more than enough. That's the nature of life and spirit. And so we can experience that as we realize the truth of that and deprogram from that old consciousness.
Mhm.
And and this is a huge issue in the world of spiritual folks, woo-woo people, because we've been sold a set of programs, from religion, from spirituality, from various sources that say there's not enough. And to be spiritual, you should be poor. How are you doing with your vows of poverty? Right? There's all these old associations that, well, if it's spiritual, you shouldn't be charging for it. It should be free. But it's all of that is just conditioned belief that's not resourceful and not helpful. And one of the laws of spirit here in the physical world is for us to live to our maximum potential, to expand into who we are here to be. We need financial prosperity as well as spiritual prosperity. It's just another form, right? We need to, because money isn't a good unto itself. Money is a means to freedom, the ability to say, hey, you know what? I want to study this. I want to buy this book. I want to have this experience. It allows us to grow and expand more and more into our infinite potential. And specifically in the business world, you know, spiritual business or spiritual commerce or sacred commerce, as it's sometimes called, is really about taking this world of entrepreneurship, business commerce, which is a lot of what moves the world, and infusing it with the values and the visions that we have as spiritual people. right? So an example would be a few years ago, it got trendy to have businesses that were environmentally concerned, green businesses, right? And at first, it seemed like a marketing or sales gimmick, but what became clear after a little while is actually when we are in line with the earth, it's more profitable. And guess what? Actually, when we treat our employees and our staff as wonderful, amazing beings, not just cogs in our mechanical wheel, they're more productive. It makes the business better. So go figure, the spiritual ideals lead to more success in the physical world as well.
I love that, and I can attest to that, and that's why I wrote my book. And it's so, I don't usually refer back to my book so much, but everything you and I have so much like good juju, good woo woo stuff together, because it is true. I mean, I got super successful in all the businesses I've done because I did exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so you got two highly successful business eco entrepreneurs, spiritual prosperity entrepreneurs right here on this line or replay that you're listening to. So I would replay back like if as many times as you need to hear what he just said. Read his book, read my book. Contact either one of us if you're stuck in one of those cogs of the wheel, because it is so true. It's about that. This is spiritual prosperity right there, and it leads to financial prosperity, and that is the truth. And you can do it without greenwashing. You can do it without being a phony. You're doing it because you dug deep into that spiritual place inside of you, that inner core, that goodness that God or goddess brought into us. We're here to help others, and the best leaders build other leaders. So why not be a leader who's building other leaders? Because it's these future generations who are looking at someone like Daniel. I thought you were in your 40s. You look great, by the way. It is really to just look to the mentors and the leaders out there that who are doing stuff like that. You want to be richer? Hang around 5 people who are richer. You want to be more spiritually awakened? Hang around more spiritual people. You want to be around people who understand that spiritual prosperity leads to economic and financial security. Hang around those people, because you just hang around with people who are the capitalist pigs, or you just want to hang out with someone who sits under a tree. No offense, Buddha, I love you. Buddha was great, but I mean, just that spiritual thing. What we're talking is that is bringing those two together in an enlightened way. So I just encourage all of you, no matter where you are in your life, to find those people to hang out with. Okay, and find yourself comfortable. Not like this, when someone hands you a book that could totally change your life, or a situation, or introduces you to somebody like you're being introduced to on this call. So Daniel, we're running out of time here, and I just really love and appreciate you. And I'm going to have you, I want to give you a couple minutes to think about, some closing words. And I just have a couple of very short announcements and really exciting things to tell our audience. But I really want you to like tie us everything that we talked about, and spiritual prosperity, and that money mindset that I read about, right? So think about that. But before Daniel does that, I can't look at my chat right now because I don't want to mess up my connection. But Meredith, if there's any questions or anybody wants to come off, raise your hand, ask Daniel any questions, or if there's any questions in the chat, I want to make sure that those get addressed. And I also want to make sure that you guys all know that next week, and we'll put this in the chat as well, is that our next week's guest is Dr. Ann Johnson. She is a functional medicine and internal medicine physician, and she's helped me with a lot of health challenges. She is probably my age, in her 60s. She was a nurse for 40 years, and then she started training with these functional doctors. And she is just a wealth of knowledge. And I know some of you, because I see you who are on live or have been dealing with health challenges for a long time. If you are dealing with any kind of health challenges, you definitely want to be on this call, because in order to have this spiritual abundance, in order to have this financial security that we're talking about, we need the prosperity of the physical body, so that, which is the temple for our souls, to be functional and happy and healthy. So I really encourage you guys all to come on and enjoy this talk with Dr. Ann Johnson. And we're going to pop her name in the chat so you guys can look her up. She's a tiny bit woo, but not like anything like woo woo. She is very practical. So come with any health concerns you might have and get your body healthy. And so we can spiritually just expand and, like a pebble in a still pond, radiate all this beautiful energy that we've gathered here today with Daniel. So Daniel, is there anything? I don't see anybody raising their hands. I see a lot of people on the call. I love this. I can't believe, Leslie, you don't have any questions, nothing to say. Alan, that's great. Thank you all for being here live. And I'd love for you in the next 5-8 minutes, Daniel, if there's anything else you want to share, leave the audience, leave our callers, anybody on the call with, please share. Or if you have anything you have on your website that you want to offer as something to people, ways to get a hold of you, please take it away, Daniel. You're awesome. Thank you for being here.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you, Donna. And well, let's see, there's one thing that I'm happy to give everybody here. I think it came up on the chat earlier, but I'll reiterate it now. I wrote a little guide that is my top 10 tips to vibrant thriving, as in, these are in my discoveries, the most important 10 things to create an extraordinary thriving life. And I'll tell you, there will be some that you will know. However, and the thing to do is not to say, oh yeah, I know that. The thing to do is say, how can I apply that more in my life? So it's a short guide, and I offer it to you as my gift. And in back of it are a few little videos to help you with that, specifically of how can you apply that more in your life. And you're doing one of them right now, which is learning, right? Learning is one of the keys to vibrant thriving. And along with that, and maybe and so the way to get that is just with my, it's my site, danielaaron.com/tips. And you can get that danielaaron.com/tips. And I guess the last thing I want to share, Donna, since we're really talking about spiritual prosperity here, is to give everybody my biggest encouragement that despite what anybody might have said, despite what fears you might have, despite any experiences you've had to the contrary, your true nature is expanded abundance. And that includes on the physical, financial level. And honestly, it wasn't just for me, that book, it was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I had so many programs that said, no, I don't deserve that. Not that I was conscious of it, but I don't deserve that, or that's not for me, or money and that whole world is too I don't understand investing and taxes and all of that. Well, what I've learned is that whole world is just like lawyers and doctors and priests who have certain clothes and certain vocabulary, which is often a way of, well, let me put it this way, that often leads a lot of us normal folk to go, oh, well, those are the experts, I better leave it to them, right? They know better than I do. Well, no, that's bullshit. And if we want to have an expanded life in all regards, if we want to have a vibrant life, we need to take responsibility. We can't abdicate responsibility, not for our spirituality, our health, or our finances. We need to take the responsibility and say, you know what? I am going to be wealthy. I am going to be financially free. I'm going to create spiritual and financial abundance because that's my birthright, because that allows me to help more people, because that gives me the freedom to do what I want, to expand to my fullest in life, right? And everybody can do that. And if you're not experiencing that, then let me know, because I would love to help you with that. That's one of my greatest passions right now. There are a lot of different ways that we can move into that for you. So I think that's my what was it? Was it a rant? Was it a monologue? Was it a manifesto? I don't know, but I'm excited about that. I'm really excited for all of y'all listening to experience the freedom that is there for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to remind you, everybody, that was really great. I just think you're giving us all permission, right? And I think that that's like a thing that we don't allow ourselves to happen in our lives, and why having a coach or a money person who has their head and their heart and their gut in the right place to help you, whoever it is, to get out of this unconscious place. We're all talking about how to be conscious. Most people are walking around so unconscious. To get ourselves truly conscious, and it means, being around and creating an ecosystem of that support and love around you, and gives you that sense of self-worth. And that's what I love about you. That's why we invited you to come on the show. You're somebody who really has helped so many people break these shackle of doubt and this money mess that's rampant. And unfortunately, so many of the young kids today, they're so confused by this, and we really need to give them the encouragement that not to follow the almighty dollar or to climb that ladder, but to keep that health is our greatest wealth. Find that spiritual prosperity, because that is going to lead you, like I to like, when you have money, you can help other people, you can donate to causes, you can create a foundation, you can create an ecosystem in whether it's a cafe or a retreat center, or even a little crafted manufacturing facility, a kombucha business. Like when I had my business, and I just want to close with this because I think this is so important to wrap our heads around this, is like at the peak of running my restaurant, I had 45 employees. A lot of them had families. I didn't ever, I'm dyslexic, so I never knew how to like balance my books or any of that. I left it to somebody else, but it never mattered to me about what I just need enough money to take care of my basic needs. But I was supporting all of these people. The business was supporting all of these people in the way that Daniel was talking about, where we were nourishing the employees. We were a team. Nobody ever worked for me. People worked with the team, or they got a job at just over broke position somewhere else, because we were after, when you start where Daniel's talking about this spiritual prosperity, and that's a foundation in the core, whether you're a solopreneur or an eco entrepreneur, or you're running a company, and you bring that in there, like he said, an eco business, you save more money. A spiritual business, you're saving more souls, you're elevating people's consciousness. You're not only making a difference in their lives, but the whole vibration of the world. So I just want to thank you, Daniel, so much for having this conversation with us, for bringing your love and your light and sharing your 10 tips with everybody. I hope you guys all grab that. They're fabulous tips. They will kind of shock you a little, because you'll realize, oh, I know this, but like he said, but I'm not doing it. So I encourage you all to reach out to him, check out his website. And I want to also remind you that we'll put the link in here in the chat too, Ecospired by Nature, which is my new company, where all of my profits, 100% of my profits right now, are going to the Get Tell Well, who is not on the call today. She is my VA who lives in the Philippines, and she is right now, you're going to love this, Daniel. she is right now, she's on every call. This is only the second call she's ever missed. She's been battling cancer for 3.5 years, and she is winning it naturally. But there's a doctor that she's seeing who you can only go with it's so hard to get into him. This guy doesn't charge any money. He's an MD in the Philippines. He's done really well. All of his patients know you don't even have to donate money. And he has turned his practice into primarily herbology, because he has found that herbs and plant medicine have been the greatest cures for everything from cancer to diabetes, you name it. He doesn't charge anybody any money. Talk about spiritual prosperity. And I'm sure that there's people, and when I talk to Tel, and I'm talking for Tel, thank you, Tel, who's not here now, because you have to get there really early. He only sees 20 people a day, and she had to get there at like 6 in the morning, and to get in to see him, right? And he spends really quality time with his patients. He goes like 12 hours. I'm sure there's people who are funding him, or he made plenty of money being a regular MD for all these years. But when you have that spiritual prosperity, and you, like me right now, why retire when I can inspire? Do you think I make money doing this? No, I don't make a penny when I spend 4 hours writing a blog and sending out all these resources and all these newsletters. I do it because I have abundance, because I did what Daniels did throughout my career for like almost 40 years of, well, 35 years when I was working to make money. And yes, I still have my vacation rental business. But I really encourage all of you to go to Ecospired by Nature, look at our website, and see what you can do when you have this money mindset. When you take those 10 tips that Daniel had and allow yourself to have the abundance, because you are so worthy, all of you. And I love you so much. And I want to say aloha. I'm going to turn my computer on right now. I am going to get a full body massage, because health is our greatest wealth. And Daniel or anybody, is there anybody who wants to come off mute real quick? Does anybody have any comments or enlightening things you'd like to share? And or Daniel, have anything last thing you want to say? If not, then I'm going to head on out.